48 will now come to order. May I have the playing of the national anthem? Councilman Remy, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Council is pleased to have with us this evening Pastor Charles Newman, who's a senior pastor at Antioch Baptist Church, to pray with us in our deliberations this evening.
Let us pray. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for substance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and the honor of bearing appropriate responsibility. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or to freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. As we pray tonight, we pray for our mayor, our various levels of city officials, and in particular for the assembled council. We ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern within the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, and keep thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Columbus. It is in your blessed name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for being with us this evening. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. This week's communications received by the city clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before moving into the resolution portion, I'd like to recognize Mayor Ginther. Thank you so much, Mayor, for joining us this evening. Would you like to kick us off with any remarks?
Well, thank you, President Hardin, and to all the council members and the elected officials that have joined us this evening, Auditor Kilgore, City Attorney Klein, and all the council members and all of the cabinet. And I want to thank you for a chance just to share a few words about our ongoing partnership and collaboration as we battle this global pandemic. You know, when COVID first reached Central Ohio, we knew we'd be faced with three crises. Obviously, a public health crisis, a human service crisis, and an economic crisis. Together, we have made some enormous sacrifices as a community to slow the spread of the virus. We continue this work by mandating facial coverings, prohibiting the sale of alcohol in restaurants and bars after 10 p.m., and pushing for testing and contact tracing through Columbus Public Health. Just last week, all of us working together with the county issued a stay-at-home advisory urging residents to avoid non-essential activities in order to stop the spread of COVID-19. These are trying times, and our city and our residents have been greatly impacted by COVID-19. In May, we were fortunate to receive $157 million in CARES Act money, and we've worked hard in partnership to make sure this money makes a difference and gets in the hands of the people and the services they need most. We've invested significant funds to ease the burden on our residents through our human service partners like the Community Shelter Board, the YMCA, the Columbus Urban League, who provide so much to our community. Our students have been particularly hit hard by the pandemic. Virtual learning shined a bright light on the disparities in our community, and students without access to technology have been left behind. So we decided to use $7 million of CARES Act dollars to assure that every student in the Columbus City schools will be given a Chromebook, and $1.5 million of CARES Act money to help with access to high-speed internet through hotspot technology. This past summer, working together, working families struggled, and they tried to find positive, safe, and creative outlets for their children. So we provided 40 nonprofits with grant funds to expand summer camps and programming options for Columbus youth. We knew that we couldn't serve the family and children we had in the past in the same way. And so we had to partner with other agencies to access their space and their staff to reach more children throughout our city. We've given funds to Impact Community Action to help provide rent and mortgage assistance to families affected by COVID-19. And since the needs have been greater than anticipated, and Impact has the capacity to deploy additional funds to the community, tonight we will hopefully, with your support, give them more and support our neighbors during this pandemic. Earlier today, I announced utility assistance grants to Columbus residents. These funds will be distributed to help families who have been unable to pay for utilities because of issues related to the COVID pandemic. And we can't forget about the economic impact of this virus. Many of our small businesses have been greatly affected by the loss of revenue due to the pandemic. Because of this, we formed a partnership with the county to provide recovery grants to help sustain their businesses through the pandemic. We were able to assist more than 900 small minority and women-owned businesses. Tonight, we hope you will consider passing an ordinance to fund a downtown and Short North Business District small business grant program with CARES money. We know you had a very positive meeting with many downtown business owners and residents here recently, Council. And so I appreciate the Council President and all of the council members who have brought us to this point to be able to respond and support those in need. You'll hear more details about this later from Director Stevens, but really appreciate Council's leadership and vision to bring this to fruition. This virus isn't done with us, and we're not done fighting it. Tonight, you will also be voting on money for a targeted multimedia campaign that will focus on COVID-19 awareness, education, prevention, and call to action, utilizing media partners, websites, radio, social media, community outreach, and other marketing media. We can't fight this alone. Council, these are just some of the ways we've spent our CARES Act money, and I want to express my appreciation to you for being a great partner in this work and in this battle to keep our city safe and healthy. I know times are tough right now, and the numbers are troubling. Records for both the state and the city announced just today. But don't get discouraged. We faced these surges before, and we, working together, making sacrifices in the best interests of our families and neighbors, have been successful in the past. We can do it again. We can turn this around, but we all must take personal responsibility. We can do what we do in the days and weeks ahead will determine how long this spike will last and can literally save lives. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. It's a season of gratitude, and I'm grateful for your partnership. Thank you for all that you do to help make Columbus stronger. And to those who celebrate, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mayor Ginther. Thank you for being with us. Thank you and your administration for putting those ordinances in front of us and working with our council to advance them. Before we have Director Stevens come on and talk about some of the important CARES legislation that you just spoke of, each week at council, I start off by pausing and recognizing those we lost in our community due to COVID. So as of today, 506 members of our community have passed away due to COVID-19. That's 12 more residents that have died. That's mothers and daughters and aunts and uncles that have lost their life since our meeting last week. Director Fielding, would you like to make any comments from the health perspective?
Thank you, Council President Hardin. Thank you, Mayor Ginther. Just to re-emphasize that these are challenging times. We talk to our healthcare systems weekly. We talk to our partners in the community, and we are definitely seeing a surge of the COVID-19. And I appreciate the efforts made by both council and the mayor's office and city administration to try to slow the outbreak. The curfew that the governor has put in place is helpful, but the working with us on the stay-at-home advisory makes a lot of sense. And I'm arguing with my two college kids that are home from OU. I want to go visit with their friends tonight, and they just can't do that. And we're making adjustments for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we appreciate it. All the support has been great. And as Mayor Ginther says, we'll beat this. We'll do better every day, and we'll save more lives. So thank you again. I appreciate the support.
Thank you, Mr. Fielding. It's tough. As a community, we want to come together, but we have to be strong. And as folks have said, the light is at the end of the tunnel. With vaccines on the way, but we got to get there together as a community. Thank you, Mr. Fielding.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
In an attempt to keep families and small businesses afloat, we're also hearing new CARES legislation this evening. I invited Director Stevens to help us kick off this meeting to give us a brief rundown of some of the legislation that we'll hear this evening. And then I'll open up to my colleagues if they have any questions or even more comments about how either they use their care, how they engage with CARES dollars to support the community. I'll start with Director Stevens.
Thank you, President Hardin. Good evening, members of council. This evening before you, we have a number of pieces of CARES legislation. The first one I'm going to cover is we've requested Ordinance 2691-2020 is $1 million for the Community Shelter Board, and we will work with them to continue to operate existing emergency shelters, a shelter for isolation and quarantine to care for people experiencing homelessness who have COVID-19 and who have been exposed. These dollars will help go reimburse CSB for their cost to feed individuals at these different shelters, as well as increase the number of COVID-19 tests that they will be able to administer through now and the end of the year, hoping to stop any type of spike of COVID-19 within our shelter system. We've identified through Ordinance 2702-2020, $800,000 that's additional funding for Impact Hope Fund. This is going to impact to continue with our rental assistance. This started, council first passed legislation to provide rental assistance late spring, and to date we have served over 3,000 families by providing them assistance with their rent and helping to stave off evictions. The next piece of legislation is 2719-2020, which is for the Clintonville Beachwald COVID-19 support. This, the Clintonville Beachwald Community Resource Center serves as the fiscal agent for all the Federation of Settlement Houses. This will be additional dollars to go to rental assistance, as well as material assistance to help our families meet their basic needs as we go into this holiday season. Then the mayor touched on this. Ordinance 2739-2020 is appropriates $2 million for the downtown and Short North Business District Small Business Grant Program. To date, we have served over 800 businesses. Over 900 businesses with $8.2 million in assistance. This is a very targeted, specific area in their downtown and our Short North to really help those businesses that have been impacted by COVID and the lack of traffic that we've had in our downtown and in our Short North area. So it's an important piece of legislation for our small businesses in these areas. The last two pieces I'd like to cover are ordinances 2691 and ordinance 2700 and ordinance 2701-2020. It totals $1 million. $815,000 is going to go to Canvas Consulting, and $185,000 is going to go to Ology LLC. And this is for the marketing program that the mayor touched on to encourage people to take the safety and precautions needed to keep us safe throughout this COVID-19 crisis during the holidays. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and obviously when we get to the legislation, I can go into further detail if needed.
Thank you, Director. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues about these pieces of legislation now at the beginning of the meeting, or any additional comments about CARES Act funding?
Council President, I appreciate the chance to highlight what the city has done to respond to the ongoing COVID crisis, which is a threefold one, as the mayor has reminded us over and over. And I want to emphasize the importance of each of us taking responsibility in our lives to wear a mask, stay at home, and practice social distancing, in part to stop the spread, but in part too, because so many people can't. And not only those who are actually working the front lines of the pandemic, but those that are in low-wage jobs that don't really have a choice to work from home. That's not an option at their job. If they do feel symptoms, they're scared to get tested because of what a positive result means for them and means for their family in terms of their financial future. That kind of choice is one we don't want any of our residents to face. So when I think about my family's Thanksgiving plans, when I think about our efforts to mask up, I think about those who don't have the choice and still want to deliver for their families, provide for their families every day. I want to just, while we're here, make sure I yet again remind the public about our Right to Recover program. If your family is at 150% of the federal poverty line and you feel COVID symptoms, do not be afraid to get tested. We have a wage replacement program run by the Columbus Urban League, which we have funded, to help make sure that you have the right to stay home and recover if you get that positive test and you have to take time from work. Because a positive COVID diagnosis is stressful enough and should not lead to long-term financial ruin for any family in Columbus. Thank you, Council President, for allowing or for really facilitating the highlight of this COVID work. I'm proud to be a part of it, and proud of all of the efforts of my colleagues to step up and be there for families.
Thank you. And we wanted to take this moment at the beginning of the meeting to really highlight this work as we make our way through this season. If there are no other questions or Councilman Remy.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank the administration for their efforts in getting the CARES dollars out this year, and the ability to work so closely together and making sure that each one of us were able to have our priorities addressed. And so it was an honor to to work closely with Director Stevens and the mayor to make sure that, and then of course my colleagues, to make sure that, you know, some of the initiatives that we all worked on, especially as Councilmember Brown just mentioned, but the Cleaner Columbus Cares dollar initiative is wrapping up a 2-week intensive cleaning effort in 5 of our opportunity areas. The numbers are still coming in, but we have literally collected 2,110 bags of trash, 63,000 pounds or 31 tons. That's 20% of all the amount of trash that was picked up last year by volunteer organizations through Keep Columbus Beautiful. So the impact was real. And the ability to make sure that over 300 people were put to work that may have lost their jobs during this time, who needed that type of work for 40 hours, paying at least $15 an hour. That type of impact is real. And the comments still come in from a lot of our neighborhood organizations that haven't been able to have those cleanups themselves this year because of COVID. So very, very thankful for that opportunity, and certainly to work with all my colleagues to make sure that that was accomplished. So thank you.
Thank you. And the work certainly continues. On behalf of council, I sit on the mayor and with County Commissioner President O'Grady on the Resiliency and Recovery Fund. We know that this is a long-term comeback. And as we even still work through the day-to-day and people still us fighting against this virus, we know that we will come back. And so we look forward to that long work, and council stands ready to stand with the administration as we move forward. So again, thank you to the mayor for stopping by, and for the health department for all their work and their frontline folks for being out there, and for Director Stevens and the Department of Development for getting these CARES dollars out. Thank you. Now we'll get back to our regular agenda. Are there any resolutions by members of council? We'll start with President Pro Tem for comments.
Thank you, Council President. I don't have any resolutions, but I just want to remind everyone, as we discussed today in the Reimagine Public Safety press conference, that budget hearings kick off this week. So tomorrow we hold the first of our series of budget meetings, and the communications office officially sent notice about that full schedule today. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, November 24th at 3 p.m., we will have a hearing of the Finance, Education, and Recreation and Parks Committee. That will include a real overview, because it's the Finance Committee isn't included, a real overview of our budget and what we're looking at in this environment, this uncertain economic environment. And we will have Auditor Kilgore with us to really provide that high-level look at the budget we're embarking on. Following that, there are a series of other meetings chaired by my colleagues. So please be on the lookout for those. And I want to thank all of my colleagues in advance for their hard work on this budget and on those hearings. That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. Councilmember Mitch Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Only as the President Pro Tem already stated, there will be a hearing involving the public safety budget on December 2nd at 5 o'clock. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Dorns.
Thank you, Council President. In the theme of budget hearings, I wanted to announce that the Technology, Public Utilities, Neighborhood Committees will be having our public hearings on the proposed 2021 operating budget next Tuesday, December 1st. It'll be, of course, virtually from 4 to 6 p.m. Representatives from each department will be on hand to present and explain their proposed budgets for the upcoming year. Residents are also welcome to provide their feedback on these budgets. You can watch it here on Council's Facebook page or YouTube page or CTV. If members of the public would like to participate or offer testimony, please email my legislative aide, Kevin McCain, at kbmccain@columbus.gov for the proper links to join the event next Tuesday. Thank you, President Hardin. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Favor. Nothing today.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm having some technical difficulties, so hopefully you can hear me. In the spirit of public hearings, the Housing Committee, Public Service and Transportation, as well as the Criminal Justice and Judiciary Committees will be hosting a public hearing December 10th from 5 to 7 p.m. And then also, applications for the 2021 Columbus Youth Council are now being accepted. The Columbus Youth Council is a 5-month program in which high school juniors and seniors from Columbus City Schools will have the opportunity to immerse themselves in city government and learn how they can become stewards in their community. Interested students can visit www.columbus.gov/CYC for additional details and the application form. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Favor. Councilmember Remy.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. I'll follow suit and say that the Economic Development Administration and Environment Committee meeting on the budget will be held Thursday, December 3rd at 4 p.m. Welcome anyone to join us at that. And I'd also like to take a moment to just say what I'm thankful for. And it's thankful to have the colleagues that I have to work with to help push this city forward. I can't think of a more thoughtful and just determined group of people to work with that makes it so pleasant to deal with some of the challenges that we've had to deal with this year, because I know that everyone is committed to making Columbus a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So thankful for that. Want to wish the rest of the residents a happy Thanksgiving, my staff and all the team down at City Hall. Very thankful for this Thanksgiving. Please make sure that if you go out, if you have to go out, that you mask up and that take care of yourselves this holiday season and stay safe.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson.
Yes, thank you, President Hardin. I have a couple of announcements. The first one is that, again, we are still, Columbus Public Health is still continuing to provide flu shots of the Ohio Expo Center and State Fair Celeste Center at 717 East 17th Avenue, Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. They're still giving about 100 flu shots a week. I also wanted to just announce that, again, they're also continuing to give free COVID-19 shots, and certainly they can register. They can register to get those shots to calling Columbus Public Health. Additionally, I also want to share that on the 3rd, I will be having a hearing at 11:30 on the default beverage policy. And then it's at 11:30. And on 2 p.m., I will have my budget hearing from Health and Human Services and Workforce Development. And I will also, even though we also Building and Zoning Services will also provide information at their hearing, even though they are not funded through the general fund, but it's an opportunity for our residents to have an opportunity to learn about the work of Building and Zoning Services. And lastly, I just want to take a few minutes to to recognize a life in Columbus, Ohio. And I want to recognize an individual who died over the past week, and her name is Nina Carr Jackson. And Nina was a member of the Delta sorority, and she has been certainly to council a number of times with her sorority sisters, and we've given them resolutions based on the work that they have been doing in our community. But I want to recognize Nina's life because she focused on working with our girls, and certainly as in my work with the Commission on Black Girls and realizing how important it is for our young girls to be able to be in leadership programs. And this particular one, Nina surely played a significant role with young girls' lives through the Deltas. And this also was important based upon the the press conference we had earlier today, when you're thinking about reimagining public safety, to be able to do that, we also have to make sure that our young people are able to be in programs within our city that help them to be able to be around strong leaders and role models to help and to show that they care about them for them to move forward. So we could just take a couple of minutes or to just recognize the incredible life of Nina Carr Jackson. Thank you. That's all I have in my committee.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Thank you for reminding us about the COVID testing that CBH is doing. Still an important component of our strategy. With that, I see our Madam Auditor. Are there any comments? City Attorney's Office represented by Chief Counsel and Madam Treasurer. All right. At this time, I would request that the following ordinance be removed from the consent action portion of the agenda. We have Housing Ordinance 2702-2020. Are there any other requests by members of council for removal of an ordinance from the resolution from the consent portion of the agenda? Seeing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of the third titles of 30-day legislation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Public Safety Committee, ordinances 2090, 2498, 2541, 2529, 2602, 2675, 2020. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 2471, 2505, 2520, 2526, 2536, 2544, 2547, 2575, and 2592-2020. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 2576-2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I actually don't have in front of me a speaker. So do we have any speakers on the consent action portion? All right, seeing none, will the clerk now read the following ordinances agenda as consent actions? Will the clerk now read each of the record?
Sure. Finance Committee, ordinances 2580, 2581, 2603-2020. Public Safety Committee, ordinance 2578-2020. Veterans and Senior Affairs Committee, ordinance 2585-2020. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 2427, 2472, 2475, 2476, 2499, 2539, 2556, and 2593-2020. Technology Committee, ordinance 2557-2020. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 2361, 2466, 2492, and 2623-2020. Housing Committee, ordinance 2389-2020, 2533, 2626, 2627, and 2629-2020. Criminal Justice and Judiciary Committee, ordinances 2630 and 2633-2020. Economic Development Committee, ordinances 2530, 2748-2020. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 2494 and 2643-2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we don't have any speakers on the portion of the agenda. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, may we now have a motion to approve these items designated as consent?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Dorans,
Yes.
Ms. Favor,
Yes.
Mr. Remy,
Yes.
Ms. Tyson,
Yes, with the exception of 2494-2020, on which I am abstaining.
President Hardin.
Yes, ordinance are passed with a noted exception. We will now proceed with the second reading of 30-day legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance Committee. The committee is chaired by President Pro Tem. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. In finance tonight, we have, getting my agenda up here. We have 10 ordinances this evening, which authorize Auditor Kilgore to issue and sell bonds to fund the projects approved in the 2020 capital improvements budget. We're considering 10 separate ordinances due to the different funding sources and uses that each will support. And as I say every time we have capital budget items before us, providing this funding for capital projects is one of the most direct ways we invest in our neighborhoods. I want to thank Auditor Kilgore for her work, ensuring that the city is accessing and utilizing this funding in the most efficient way possible. Due to delays caused by COVID-19 and the need to initiate these bond sales as soon as possible, we will be waiving the second reading of these ordinances. Before I go through each of them, Auditor Kilgore, would you like to share more about your process for issuing these bonds, particularly during the consistently abnormal year of 2020?
Thank you. Good to be here tonight. President Hardin, members of council, Finance Chair Brown in particular, thank you for all of your hard work on this too, Finance Chair. The ordinances this evening are customary request to authorize the bonds to finance the capital projects that have already been authorized by this council. To your point, Finance Chair, flexibility and agility are powerful tools in this COVID market. But the general timing we are seeking right now would be a sale in mid-January with the bond proceeds coming to the city in mid-February. I'm happy to take any questions regarding these ordinances, but I'd also like just to take a moment and express my appreciation, especially to Director Lombardi, to Finance Chair Brown and other members of council for your diligent decision-making over these last few months. Something that's very important to note as we start to embark on conversations with the rating agencies is that we are the most populous city in the country to maintain a AAA from all three agencies. And part of that is due to the strong management of the city. And it truly is a collaborative decision-making process. So on behalf of my office, I thank each and every one of you for the time you've given me in these last few months in particular. I'm happy to take any questions, Finance Chair.
Thank you so much, Auditor Kilgore. Are there any questions from my colleagues? All right. Well, seeing none, we will move into the 10 pieces of legislation. Beginning with, sorry, my computer is very slow sometimes. Beginning with Ordinance 2605-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $7,750,000 for public safety and health-related projects. In accordance with Section 44(1)B of the City Charter, I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Next is Ordinance 2606-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $14,650,000 for health, safety, and infrastructure-related projects. In accordance with Section 44(1)B of the City Charter, I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance 2607-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $27,380,000 for recreation and park related projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Next is ordinance 2608-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $14,500,000 for the neighborhood development related projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Ordinance 2609-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $100,445,000 for transportation and refuse projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Ordinance 2610-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $72,815,000 for water, storm, and power projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Please call the row. Waived.
You're on mute, clerk.
Oops. Sorry about that. Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And
I
I'll-
read your lips. I'm sorry.
I think I only said waive second reading, so now I'm moving for passage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Next, we have ordinance 2611-2020 to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $84,920,000 for public utilities. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Next is ordinance 2612-2020 to authorize the issuance of limited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $27,450,000 for economic and community development projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Ordinance 2613-2020 to authorize the issuance of limited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $12,385,000 for construction management projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
And I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
And finally, ordinance 2614-2020 to authorize the issuance of limited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $9,645,000 for information services projects. Section 44(1)B of the city charter. I move to waive second reading.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Waived.
I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Great. And may I move on to Recreation and Parks, Council President? Wonderful. In Recreation and Parks tonight, we have Ordinance 2516-2020 to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Canvas Consulting LLC to develop and manage the Linden Community Center's community-based music studio program, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Chapter 329 of the Columbus City Codes, to authorize the expenditure of $100,000 from within the Recreation and Parks Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. The new Linden Music Studio program includes a curriculum focused on music history, music genres, recording basics, music and video production, instrumental and vocal development, and current music distribution strategies, including streaming platforms. A plan will be created for community outreach and involvement that provides support for local musicians and artists. The program will begin when the new Linden Community Center opens to the public, which we hope will be soon. This is a very exciting new program, and I know the department has worked hard and collaborated. Director Rakowski, can you please explain the waiver of competitive bidding and anything else you may want to add about rollout?
Thank you, President Hardin, President Pro Tem Brown. Obviously, we're extremely excited about the new Linden Community Center. We're hoping that we're finishing up here by the end of the year, and after the first of the year, we're looking to do an opening for that center. We've run into a little bit of problem with some the procurement of some of the materials because of the COVID shutdown, but the bid waiver, we're asking for that because as we began to enter into this program and to start contemplating what we wanted to do with the studio, we did not have the internal expertise to come up with the kind of program that we thought the community deserved at the center. So we did engage Yavez Ellis at the beginning of this process to help guide us to make sure that we were meeting all of those needs and making sure that our intentions were solid in regard to the programming for the music studio. We then have rolled the clock forward. We're ready to get somebody to come in and help operate that studio. We did put a bid out because of the unique nature of the program. There were only 2 bids. One of those was Yavez in Canvas Consulting. They were clearly the best bidder, but because we had engaged Yavez earlier, it was appropriate in my mind to go ahead and ask for the waiver of the bidding because we had already dealt with Yavez earlier and he helped guide us at the beginning of this process. But our hope is that over the course, this is our first year in the studio that we'll be able to develop that expertise internally and be able to take this over in the future. But that's why we're asking for the waiver.
Great. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from my colleagues?
Councilmember Brown, I don't have any questions, but I'm just very excited about this programming. I think that, again, I'm it's like a broken record today, but any opportunity we have to make sure that young people are being able to be involved with new programming. The Recreation and Parks system does an amazing job of working with our young people, and the role models that the leaders are certainly help our young people to move forward. And so, but to then bring in some innovative programming for our young people, we'll just continue to keep them coming to our facility. So I'm very excited. I know Yavas, and I'm very excited that we're having this innovative programming within the Recreation and Park system. So congratulations to you and congratulations to the administration, Director Rakowski, for, again, innovative programming for our young people. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Council Member. All right. Seeing no other questions or hearing no other questions, I move for passage.
She's got one more.
Oh.
She has one.
Please call the roll.
Let's have one.
Brown, Dorans, Faber, Remy, Tyson. President Hardin.
Pass.
Great. Thank you. Council President, I have one item in rules and reference that I worked on with your partnership. May I move to that committee before passing it on to my Councilmember Brown?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Tonight in rules and reference, we have ordinance 2768-2020 to enact new chapter 574 of the Columbus City Codes pertaining to third-party food delivery services, to establish a limit on the commission that third parties can charge to restaurants located in the city of Columbus to 15% of the purchase price on delivery or pickup orders, while restaurants are unable to provide unrestricted dine-in service, to prohibit a reduction in compensation for delivery drivers as a result of this limit, and to declare an emergency. When Council President and I rolled this out on Friday, I said this, but it is very clear that small businesses and the people who keep them running are hurting as COVID-19 continues to spread. Right now, we are under necessary health restrictions to protect our community. And because of them, our local restaurants rely only more than ever on delivery of food to their customers. But fees, sometimes higher than 30%, charged by third-party delivery companies, make already difficult circumstances even more challenging and further threaten restaurants' survival. Also, as a resident of this great city, as a policymaker in this great city, as someone who represents those who live here, it doesn't sit well with me that these fees essentially ship our local dollars outside of our community to out-of-state corporations. We want to keep the money that folks are spending locally here locally, to help our businesses survive, to pay our workers, and to keep people employed. I want to highlight that we are protecting workers in this ordinance by ensuring that delivery services do not reduce pay or garnish tips from delivery drivers in response to the cap. Local restaurants keep people fed. They add to the character of our neighborhoods. They improve quality of life for residents. Enacting this fee cap is an important step to help these local businesses continue to be a part of our city in a unique time. I want to highlight that I'm submitting an amendment from the floor, which we worked with third-party delivery companies to draft. The amendment will allow restaurants to obtain optional products or services, such as access to subscription programs, and not have it count against the delivery fee cap. I want to thank my legislative aide, Kelsey Ellingson, and City Attorney Klein and his office for their hard work on this fee cap to bring it before us for consideration tonight. I also want to thank the Ohio Restaurant Association and Capitol Crossroads CID for amplifying the voices of local restaurants. There were several incredibly active local restaurateurs that really pushed this idea forward, got it on our radar screens, and helped to make it a reality. I will highlight Sheila Troutner and Matt Roots in particular of Hubbard Grill and Pat and Gracie's. Most importantly, thank you to every local owner who reached out to share their story about why this cap is so important. And then finally, I want to thank President Hardin for his partnership and support of this ordinance. President Hardin, would you like to add comments, please?
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I really don't have much, maybe just to highlight that last point that you made. This was not something that you and I just came up with. The community, small restaurateurs brought this to our attention and asked for this. And I'm just proud that with the help of the state attorney's office, with the work of our legislative affairs teams and staffs and your leadership, we were able to turn it around. So this is just us layering on to try to help people out through a very, very difficult time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Council President. Are there any other comments or questions from our colleagues? Hearing none?
No, I was going to say,
Council member.
Council Pro Tem Brown and Council President Hardin, thank you so much for the work and leadership on this. Growing up in this business and living in restaurants all my life, we know that margins can be razor thin. And because of what's going on this year, this legislation is going to help so many restaurants that may be teetering on the edge. And so this was important work. I'm glad we were able to get it through. And I just wanted to thank you for your leadership today.
Thank you for your support. Hearing no further comments or questions, I move to amend as submitted to the clerk's office.
Your second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Amended.
And I move for passage as amended.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Yeah.
Great. And that is all I have in my committees, Council President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Safety Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Mitch Brown. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight in Public Safety Committee, I have a series of resolutions pertaining to liquor objections. My office has been working with City Attorney Klein and Assistant City Attorney Sarah Pomeroy. Ms. Pomeroy will provide background into the process, and then she will provide context for each objection as are presented this evening, answering questions as they come up. Once that's been completed, we'll go through the legislation without interruption. Unfortunately, we have about 16 liquor objections this evening. So with that, let me turn it over to Ms. Pomeroy.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Thank you, President Hardin, President Pro Tem Brown, and everyone, members of council and everyone listening tonight. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you and talk about this year's liquor objections. First, I'll briefly go through the process tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions about that as we go. So the process generally has 8 major steps. Identifying problem establishments, and investigation and evaluation is really the first year-long process, really, where first we meet, the City Attorney's Office meets regularly with Columbus Police, Columbus Fire, the Ohio Investigative Unit, Columbus Public Health, Code Enforcement, licensing, as well as a few other state agencies to just, start our investigation process of places throughout the city that may be that may merit an objection. First and foremost, though, complaints come into this group from community members. So we involve area commissions, we solicit places from civics associations, block watches, other community members. They're often the first to identify which places may be problematic, and that sort of sets off the investigation throughout the year. Factors that we look at in terms of whether or not to lodge a liquor permit objection include liquor violations, of course, narcotics, both sales and possession, high levels of crimes of violence, overdoses, crimes where alcohol or intoxicated individuals may play a role, and additionally health code violations. So we meet regularly to discuss these establishments, assess what may be happening at each of them, and we develop a preliminary list in the later half of the year, finalizing on a list at the end of the year. As you can see, we have a few slides here. If you could skip to the next one, please. And actually one more. Sorry, that's all the factors that we just consider. So by law, in order to lodge a liquor objection, the objection is actually legally required to come from the legislative body of whatever the municipality is. So in this case, obviously, it is City Council. And so near the end of the year, my office makes recommendations to City Council, which Council can choose to adopt via a resolution. Just so folks understand sort of what happens from here, if the resolutions are adopted, establishments actually continue to operate between the time period of an objection and a public hearing before the Division of Liquor Control. This usually is about a 2-month period. At this point, most hearings would get scheduled in late January to mid-February. Outcomes from those hearings can be that the objection is sustained and therefore they can't operate selling any liquor at that establishment. The objection could be overruled and they would continue operating. Some establishments choose to go ahead and forfeit their permits. And a lot of times, actually, what ends up happening is the city actually reaches an agreement with the permit holder. This happens very frequently post-objection. The objection, sometimes we actually already have begun discussions with permit holders. Other times, the objection sort of kicks off a time period if we haven't been able to reach a permit holder prior to an objection. Sometimes those agreements that are reached include security requirements, operating procedure changes, employee training, and provisions that allow us to reopen a case if potentially the issues continue. So those agreements are generally entered into under the umbrella of nuisance abatement work in the environmental court of Franklin County. And for example, we actually had out of last year's objections, which there were 6, 5 of the 6 actually were able to reach agreements to resolve those objections, and there's been notable improvement on most of those places. So this is really the first step, this objection process, and we understand that it's a serious step, and the city attorney's office does not take it lightly, but it is certainly not the end, because frequently the best solution is somewhere in between how things have been and a complete shutdown. But of course, if a complete shutdown is the best solution, we absolutely move forward with that in front of the Division of Liquor Control. Does anyone have any questions on process? All right. Seeing none, I will move into the individual places. So first, we have Resolution 0171X2020 C1 Market. This is actually an establishment that we filed a nuisance abatement lawsuit against because there was an excessive number of calls for service, 149 to this location alone, 300 some to the entire parcel that this location sits on. There was illegal drug sales, liquor and tobacco law violations, a high level of police calls. Community complaints really initiated this location, and after it was shut down and boarded up at the end of September, there have been 0 calls to this location, 0 activity in that parking lot. And therefore, we're requesting an objection for C1 Market's liquor permit. Next, please. I guess, any questions about C1 Market?
No.
All right. Next, we have Courtright Market. Courtright Market primarily is here before the council due to multiple arrests for narcotics at that location. They're actually the covert drug purchases that occurred at this location were actually conducted inside the store. There's also been multiple incidents of gunfire, illegal tobacco sales. Community complaints have also raised concerns about intoxicated individuals needing medical assistance or overdoses on the property. And again, that just highlights one of the things that we certainly look at is how is alcohol and the sales of alcohol related to the activity at the location. We're not focused on punishing the individuals who are suffering from overdoses or may need assistance, but why is this location a problem and a draw for this type of activity? And so for Courtright, the calls for service over the last 2 years have been 53. And just so everyone is aware, Courtright actually applied midway through September to transfer their liquor permit. So throughout the year, folks will decide to potentially move their liquor permit one way or the other. And we have actually objected to the transfer as well in order to both preserve what was looking like an end of the year objection and to potentially connect with the new owners of that permit. I would say this is one that, with new ownership potentially coming in, is ripe for potential. Any questions on Courtright? All right, seeing none, moving on to Food Mart, or known as Convenient Plus Food Mart at 3351 East Main Street. This location came to our office primarily through patrol complaints, but also through some community members. There's been a significant amount of suspected gang activity at this location, which has led to an increased number of calls for service, 91 over the last 2 years. There's also been additional calls for narcotic sales, individuals suffering from an overdose at the property, as well as a lot of significant gunplay at this location.
Go ahead.
All right, next. We have Moments Grill and Lounge. Police have been called to this location at 2545 Petzinger Road due to multiple incidents of gunfire and violence, including over the summer 3 shootings in 3 weeks. From a period of end of June to early July. Police investigations have also uncovered some liquor violations. The calls for service ratio at this location is very high, 112 over the last 2 years. And what's notable about that is they have not had special duty police working during that time. So those calls are just calls coming from that location, not because of any police that have been working there. And so therefore, especially due to the gunplay at this location and the liquor permit, we're requesting an objection. All right, Next, we have Sunoco at 1536 West Broad Street. This is our objection that has the highest number of calls for service over the last 2 years among the objections, 321 over the last 2 years, which is incredibly high. The vast majority of these have been tied to drug use, sales, possession, usage, overdoses, all of that happening on the lot and around the lot. A significant number of community members have initiated this complaint, both with my office and the Division of Police. We have been contacted by the owner of this location, so we're starting conversations with them about potential solutions here, but we have also decided to file a nuisance abatement lawsuit against the location just based on the drug activity there. Any questions? All right, next we have another Sunoco on the west side, 2281 Sullivan Avenue. This is one where police investigations have led to arrests for narcotics-related offenses. There actually was a shooting in October, which ultimately was deemed a homicide. Community members have frequently cited this location to us as one of the worst places in that Sullivan Avenue corridor around, just around there. Numerous personnel, both from patrol and community groups, have expressed support for this action. They have 132 calls for service over the last 2 years. Any questions? All right. And actually, just for reference, we actually did file a nuisance abatement lawsuit against that location as well today. So now we have M&M Market, which is in the Linden area at 1596 Oakland Park Avenue. Police have been called to multiple complaints of gunfire and narcotics activity. Paramedics have also been called, both from police and fire, to assist multiple individuals with treatment for overdoses. The calls for service at this location are lower, only 20 over the last 2 years, but there have been multiple covert drug purchases and a lot of community complaints about the activity on this lot. Here, the business owner and the landowner have reached out to my office, so we actually have a meeting scheduled for the next week to potentially start to talk through solutions here. Next, please. All right, next we have Gulf Station at 2676 Cleveland Avenue. Community complaints here have led to multiple arrests for narcotics and solicitation at this location. One of the more frequent complaints that was seen in the runs at this location was for prostitution here. There's also been multiple individuals needing medical treatments for an overdose, and their calls for service are again incredibly high, 227 at this location in the last 2 years. This, along with our next location, have certainly been the highest in the Linden area as far as activity. Any questions? All right, seeing none. Moving on to Mobile Mart, this is another Linden area that has very high calls for service, 154 over the last 2 years. Community complaints here led to police arrests for weapons offenses, multiple assaults, narcotics, and again, unfortunately, solicitation. Investigations also showed that they have liquor permit violations at this place. And in September alone, there was both a homicide and an overdose death at this location. So unfortunately, this is a place where it checks a lot of the issues that we look at, and unfortunately, they're all happening at this location. Any questions? All right. Moving on to Wheatland Foods, 1432 Mount Vernon Avenue. Community complaints here have led to multiple narcotics arrests in addition to reports of robberies on the premises. This complaint primarily came to our office for the drug activity on the lot. There has been a covert drug purchase at this location. The fire department has responded here to multiple individuals having an overdose. Again, calls for service at this location with 32 over the last 2 years is not incredibly high, but for a couple of reasons. One, the drug activity. We wanted to move forward with an objection. Also, this place has also requested a liquor permit transfer in October. And so as part of that process, we objected to the transfer because it was on our final list for potential objections this year. But this is another one where potentially with new management, we certainly are looking forward to sitting down and talking to whoever might come in and potentially handle this location just a little bit better. Any question? All right, moving on, we have the Mobile Mart at 830 Parsons Avenue. There actually was a homicide at this location, unfortunately, earlier this year. There's been numerous incidents of those needing medical treatment for individuals suffering from an overdose. Other narcotics-related offenses, including covert drug purchases, have occurred on the lot. And one of our Detective Lori Evans, who's actually with us tonight, witnessed. There have been witnessing of prostitution happening at the lot and seeing known prostitutes actually sleeping by some of the gas pumps at this location. So again, calls for service are not incredibly high compared to some of our other locations, but still 46 at this place. And both due to the homicide and the drug activity, we're objecting to this license. Any questions? All right, seeing none. So Convenient Plus, 1541 Freebus Avenue, may sound familiar to some of you. This is actually an objection that we lodged last year. However, this was one where we were not able to reach an agreement with the individual, and this actually went to a full hearing in front of the Division of Liquor Control. Unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of those hearings and negotiations got pushed into the later half of the year, so we are still awaiting a decision on last year's objection. Obviously, these permit objections come up around the same time while we're still waiting. And so in order to, I guess, hold our place in line, we are reaffirming our objection here. We objected last year based primarily on narcotics-related offenses as well as a few liquor violations. But again, depending on how the decision goes to the Division of Liquor Control, this may be one where we might withdraw it if the decision doesn't go our way, because our evidence would largely remain the same across the 2 years. Calls for service here are 35 over the last 2 years. Any questions? All right, moving on to the next one. This is another holdover from last year where we have we're waiting on a hearing that is actually set in December in front of Division of Liquor Control. Again, things getting delayed due to the COVID delay with everything at the state level, especially. The city's obviously waiting a ruling because we haven't had a hearing, but we are also very close to potentially coming to a resolution on this location as well. So again, until everything gets resolved, either through the Division of Liquor Control or through a potential agreement, this is a reaffirmation of last year's objection. Again, calls for service at 63 over the last 2 years. Any questions here? All right, moving on to McGuffey Market. This is another Linden area property that has pretty high level of calls for service, 122 over the last 2 years. Complaints here from community members and then ultimately also from police have resulted in arrests for assaults, narcotics, as well as solicitation here. There have been liquor permit violations. And additionally, Detective Evans, in one of her surveillances of the location, witnessed folks selling liquor and assorted drugs actually out of a U-Haul parked in the parking lot at this location. So that's a host of violations there, right there. And then based on the other activity there, we're objecting to the liquor permit at this location. Any questions here? All right. Seeing none, moving on to the Marathon, which is at 744 East Hudson Street. Community complaints here have resulted in arrests for assaults, narcotics, solicitations, and weapons offenses. There have also been multiple liquor permit violations here, and calls for service here are incredibly high, 180 over the last 2 years. This is one, again, unfortunately, where it has issues across the entire spectrum of what we look at between liquor, drugs, solicitation, other crime issues. So we're objecting to this one as well. Any questions?
Ms. Pomeroy?
Yes.
On the ones that are nationally branded like Marathon, do you ever find any cooperation by contacting the national brand and talking to them about the location, or does that help in any way?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question, Councilmember Remy. As far as how we've typically worked things in the past, most of the time these places, their sole connection to any of these national brands is, they pay a fee to have the name on their billboard. And so prior to this year, there hasn't actually been a whole lot of cooperation with the parent company, so to speak. But actually the Sunoco's on the west side are illustrative of this. We actually are naming Sunoco the parent company in our nuisance abatement lawsuits, with the idea that we hope that this is the start of being able to bring them in on a much larger scale to essentially, check with who their franchisees are and what's happening at their franchises. So unfortunately, that has not been a consistent policy of our office prior to this year, but we're starting that for this very reason, because we feel that certainly that there's some leverage there that we have not really tapped into. And so our hope is that, yes, moving forward, we'll be able to use that, I guess, in a stronger way.
I think it's an excellent idea. I know that, brand reputation and people, corporations like that pay a lot for that reputation. So whenever you can take a stab at it, I know we've had success with Dollar General, for instance, talking with the corporate folks to make sure that they're making their properties respectful of the neighborhood, cleaning them up, making sure the landscaping's taken care of. And it wasn't until we got a hold of the corporate folks that they actually started to comply, and they do it quite diligently, actually. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. All right, so our final objection is a little bit different from some of our other ones that we've already gone over. This is for PJ's Grill, which is 15 East Frambies Avenue on campus. This actually was a product primarily of investigations with my office and then the Ohio Investigative Unit. Investigations there, in addition to 4 liquor sales, liquor violations actually for the initial establishment, there have also been 51 reports for underage alcohol sales coming from this location. Now, I know folks might say, oh, campus, I don't know, is that too much? Is that on par with other locations? OIU actually reported that among their most frequented locations on campus, this has more than double the number of underage sales. And so due to that, they don't have high calls for service. They don't have the other high criminal numbers, but a clear concentration of underage liquor sales as well as liquor law violations as far as campus carryouts go. And therefore, we're requesting an objection to this license as well. So that concludes the list of the 16. I know that was a lot, and I rushed a little bit because I know everyone's got a packed agenda, but I'm happy to take any questions about any one of these places, about our process. I also have with me detectives Laura Evans and Joshua Gant, who were instrumental in all of these investigations. And they're here, they're available to answer any questions that anyone may have. And I guess we'll close before I take any questions saying, of all of the factors, our ultimate goal is we're trying to protect the safety, sobriety, peace, and good order of the community. That's not only just the standard for liquor objections, but I think that's our main role in this process with trying to both use nuisance abatement work and liquor objections to make our neighborhoods a little safer. So I'll take questions.
Ms. Pomeroy, I said I don't see any questions from my colleagues, so I'm going to run through these resolutions and ask for adoption. So with that, resolution 0171X2020 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 1392586 issued to Channing Inc., which is doing business at C1 Market, located 6044 Channing Boulevard, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Second, and Councilmember Brown, I just want to say that thank you so much. I don't think we've ever moved through liquor objections in my 13, almost 14 years of being here this quickly, and certainly it's because of you providing us with this information ahead of time. And just want to say thank you for your leadership and giving us this information for us to review before this hearing. Thank you so much. And again, I've already moved for adoption.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. A lot of the hard work, again, was done by Detective Evans and Detective Gant, and certainly Ms. Pomeroy and the City Attorney's Office, so that we could try and make sure we utilize the time of our council colleagues expeditiously. With that, resolution 0173X2020 to object to the renewal of
Mr. Chairman, we have to call the roll on the 0171X. Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Yeah, I got you, Council President. Resolution 0173X2020 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 1776875 issued to Courtright Express Mark Inc., which is doing business as Courtright Express Mark Inc., located at 2213 Courtright, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Also, Resolution 0174X 2020 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 241299600010 issued to Easy Stop Inc., which is doing business Convenient Plus Food Mart located at 3351 Main Street, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Also, ordinance number 0175X to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 41801750002 held by J. Mack doing Investments Inc. LLC, doing business as Moment, located at 2545 Petzinger Road, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance number 0176X 2020 to object to the renewal liquor permit number 41798900020 held by JJ Petroleum Inc., doing business as Sunoco, located at 1536 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance number 0177X 2020 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 6367760 issued to NEDAA LLC, which is doing business as Sunoco, located at 2281 Sullivan Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance number 0178X 2020 to object to renewal liquor permit number 5389275 issued to M&M Market and Carryout Inc. LLC, which is doing business as M&M Market and Carryout, located at 1596 Oak Park Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance 018X 2020 to object to renewal liquor permit number 0160914 issued to Amar Mark LLC, doing business as Beer and Tobacco Outlet, aka Gulf Station, located at 1432 Mount Vernon Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance 0181X 2020 to object to the renewal liquor permit number 915302 issued to 2728 Cleveland Avenue Inc., which is doing business as Mobile Mart, located at 2727 Cleveland Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no objections, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance 0182X to object to the renewal liquor permit number 95561790005 issued to Wheatland Foods Inc., which is doing business as Wheatland Foods, located at 1432 Mount Vernon Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance 0183X 2020 to object to the renewal liquor permit number 46213250005 issued to Corum LLC, which is doing business as Mobile Mart, located at 830 Parsons Avenue. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Ordinance number 0184X 2020 to object to the renewal liquor permit number 7640081 issued to S. Eman Inc., which is doing business as Convenient Plus Food Mart, located at 1541 Phoebus Avenue. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Ordinance 0185X 2020 to object to renewal liquor permit number 7736040 issued to Saud Inc., which is doing business as Livingston Market, located at 1619 East Livingston Avenue. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Ordinance 0186X to object to the renewal liquor permit number 4410458 issued to Jumaha LLC, which is doing business as McGuffey Market, located at 1066 East Hudson Street, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Ordinance 018X to object to the renewal liquor permit number 983225 issued to YMA LLC, which is doing business as Payless Auto Service, aka Marathon, located at 744 East Hudson Street. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
And ordinance number 0188X 2020 to object to the renewal liquor permit number 2630352 issued to FAK Aura Inc., which is doing business as PJ's Grill, located at 15 East Frambays Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
President Hardin, that's all I have. And again, I want to thank Detective Evans and Detective Nant, and again, Sarah Pomeroy for their engagement. That's all I have in public safety this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is 6:27. How about we go ahead and pause, and then we'll go right into zoning at 6:30. May I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
We are recessed. We will start promptly at 6:30. to come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the Jonah?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
We will now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Tyson chairs that committee. All members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before beginning the zoning agenda, I'll briefly explain the rules of council as pertain to speaking for council on zonings and variances. We permit 3 speakers on each side, 3 proponents and 3 opponents, and we ask that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes on each side. And we provide an opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. On the advice of the city attorney's office, anyone who wishes to speak for or against any council variance, including staff must be sworn in prior to giving testimony. We do so prior to beginning the reading of each variance on the agenda. Anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against this council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I wish to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. So the first ordinance is 2441-2020. It's to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.039 R4 Residential District and 3312.09 Isle of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 851 North 4th Street, to permit a 300 square foot accessory dining patio and reduced aisle with width in the R4 residential district. The applicant is the Woodhouse Vegan Cafe, care of agent Dave Perry. The proposed use is a 300 square foot accessory dining patio. The city department's recommendation is approval, and the Italian Village Commission's recommendation is approval 5-0. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. The next ordinance is ordinance 2542-2020 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.38H private garage and 3332.38G private garage of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 183 Alexander Alley to permit habitable space above a detached garage with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district. The applicant is Brenda Parker. The proposed use is a habitable space above a detached garage. The city department's recommendation is approval, and the German Village Commission's recommendation is approval 5-0. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Thank you. Anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against this council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I wish to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. Ordinance 2558-2020 to grant a variance from provisions of sections 3332.037 R2F Residential District, 3312.21 D1 Landscaping and Screening, 3312.49 Minimum Numbers of Parking Spaces Required, 3321.05 B2 Vision Clearance, 3332.26 the Minimum Side Yard Permitted, 3372.608 B Setback Requirements, and 3372.605 BD Building Design Standards of Columbus City Codes, and 3372.605 BD property located building design standards for the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1223 East Long Street, and to permit an eating and drinking establishment with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district, and repeal ordinance number 763-92 passed April 27th, 1992. The applicant is Millo Holdings LLC, care of agent James Flynn. The proposed use is an eating and drinking establishment. The city department's recommendation is approval. The Near East Area Commission's recommendation is approval 14-0. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2564-2020. Is to rezone 27 West Jenkins Avenue, being 2.53 acres, located at the southwest corner of West Jenkins Avenue and South Wall Street, 170 feet west of South High Street, from the M Manufacturing District to the AR1 Apartment District. The applicant is Woda Cooper Companies Incorporated, care of Agent Dave Perry. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development, and the city department's recommendation is approval. And the Columbus South Side Area Commission's recommendation is also approval, 11-0. If there are no questions or comments, I would move for passage.
Second.
Call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Thank you. The next ordinance is, first of all, anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against this council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I wish to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. Ordinance 2565-2020 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3309 .14A height districts and 3312.21D1 landscaping and screening and 3312.49C minimum numbers of parking spaces required of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 27 West Jenkins Avenue, to permit reduced development standards for an apartment building in the AR1 Apartment Residential District. The applicant, again, is Woda Cooper Companies Incorporated. The proposed use is a 60-unit apartment building. The city department's recommendation is approval. The Columbus South Side Area Commission's recommendation is approval, 11-0. Again, this is care of Agent Dave Perry. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I now like to move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Thank you. The next ordinance is anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against this council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I wish to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. Ordinance 2566-2020 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.039 R4 Residential District, 3312.49 minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3332.805 maximum floor area ratio, 3332.05 area district lot with requirements, 3332.15 R4 area district requirements, 3332.19 fronting, 3332.25 maximum side yards required, and 3332.26 minimum side yard permitted, and 3332.27 rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 1480 North 6th Street to permit 2 single-unit dwellings on one lot with reduced development standards in the R4 residential district. The applicant is Brenda Parker. The proposed use is a single unit dwellings on one lot, 2 single-unit dwellings on one lot. The city department's recommendation is approval, and the University Area Commission's recommendation is approval, 14-4. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2567-2020 to rezone 1448-1450 East Main Street, being 0.3 acres located at the northeast corner of East Main Street and Miller from the R3 residential district to CPD commercial plant development. The applicant is Matroska Properties LLC, care of Agent David Bernstein, and the proposed use is a mixed-use development. The city department's recommendation is approval, and the Near East Area Commission's recommendation is also approval at 14-0. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. And that now concludes the zoning agenda this evening.
If there is no further business coming for the zoning committee, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Meeting is adjourned. Are we good to keep going right back into the meeting? All right. Meeting number 48. May I have a motion for meeting number 48 to reconvene?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next committee to come before council is the Public Utilities Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Dorans. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. In the Public Utilities Committee tonight, I have ordinance number 2501-2020 to authorize the city auditor to transfer $200,000 in an appropriation authority between the object classes within the sewer operating and sanitary fund to transfer $1 million in the appropriation authority between object classes within the electricity operating fund to authorize the director of public utilities to renew the electric power systems maintenance services contract with Robert Service Group Inc. for the Department of Public Services, to authorize the expenditure of $600,000 from the sewer operating and sanitary sewer fund and $600,000 from the electricity operating fund, and to declare an emergency. This renewal is for services for the Division of Sewer and Drainage and the Division of Power Facilities. The electric power distribution systems and their components require studies to be performed. Inspection, testing, maintenance, repair, and or replacement, with the majority of the work to be on industrial equipment and systems to keep our facilities running in top shape. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Call the roll. Yes, sorry. Brown,
Council President, you're on mute. Sorry.
I was on mute. That was my fault. Please call
That's all right. Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. Next, I have ordinance number 2648-2020 to adopt the operation and governance plan attached hereto for the city to effect a government electricity aggregation program with opt-out provisions pursuant to section 4928.20 of the Ohio Revised Code, which is approved by the majority of electors voting in the general election held on November 3rd, 2020, and to declare an emergency. Last week, Environment Chair Councilmember Remy and I held 2 public hearings, which you can view on the council's YouTube pages, to learn more about the governing and operations plan the city will be pursuing as a result of the overwhelming passage of issue 1 earlier in this month's general election. The primary goals of the city aggregation program will be to provide competitive retail electricity supply costs for Columbus residents, support renewable energy development, especially local renewable energy generation, to advance Columbus's sustainable economy, and to ensure that suppliers provide quality, reliable customer service to citizens here in the city. The city is also committed to an aggregation program that supports sustainability efforts, energy efficiency, and other policy priorities for the city that benefits our community. Ordinance number 1642-2020 passed earlier this year, which authorized the city of Columbus to perform all necessary actions to effectuate a governmental electricity aggregation program for the city with opt-out provisions pursuant to the state code for residents and small businesses in the incorporated areas of the city of Columbus. I encourage those looking for more information about this program to visit cleanenergycolumbus.org. Emergency action is requested so the city can efficiently file its Public Utilities Commission of Ohio application and maintain the necessary timeline to meet the 2022 goal and ensure that this clean energy initiative can commence as soon as possible. I'd like to pause and allow Councilmember Remy an opportunity to provide any comments that he might have, as he's been a great partner as chair of the Environment Committee on this entire aggregation process.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Dorrance, and thank you for your leadership in getting this important legislation through. I want to thank the voters for passing this overwhelmingly, and certainly the administration for their work on putting together this governance plan. Looking forward to this rolling out over the next several months as we shoot towards a June implementation date. Very exciting work that really helps us meet our sustainability goals for the city of Columbus. So again, thank you, Councilmember Dorrance, for the hearings last week and all the work that you put forth on this important issue.
Thank you, Chair Remy. I appreciate that. I also want to thank Erin Beck from the mayor's office, who's been spearheading this effort from the administration. She's been a tireless advocate to continue to move this process forward. And finally, just to thank the voters. I think it's pretty rare when you have anything on the ballot that gets nearly 80% of the votes. And even when it's such a great and no-brainer idea like aggregation. So we were very, very pleased to see the amount of support that we received from the citizens of Columbus in the ballot box. Do any other of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorrance, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That is all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next committee to come before council is the Economic Development Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
I believe that we have something in housing this evening. Do we not?
Just joking.
Okay.
The next committee to come before council is the Housing Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Faber. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Remy and Council President Hardin. Tonight in housing, we have Ordinance 2702-2020 to authorize the Director of Development to modify a contract with the Impact Community Action Agency for the HOPE program to add an amount up to $500,000, to authorize an expenditure in an amount of up to $500,000 from the Department of Development's CARES Act budget, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance represents our fourth contract modification with Impact Community Action for the HOPE program, as our community's need for rental assistance dollars continues to grow. This amendment will allow Impact to deploy additional funds to families in need during this challenging time and help prevent the devastating evictions as we continue to urge families to shelter in place. Are there any questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I would move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Is that a second, Councilmember Remy?
Second.
Please call the row.
Ms. Brown,
Abstain.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Dorrance,
Yes.
Ms. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Remy,
Yes.
Ms. Tyson,
Yes.
President Hardin.
Yes, ordinance passed. Or amended.
Move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Ms. Brown,
Abstain.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Dorrance,
Yes.
Ms. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Remy,
Yes.
Ms. Tyson,
Yes.
President Hardin.
Yes, now ordinance is passed.
Thank you. That's all I have in my this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now we will go to the Economic Development Committee where Councilmember Remy chairs. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President Hardin. I only have 12 ordinances this evening in the Economic Development Committee. Our first ordinance is 2511-2020 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with Marble Cliff Canyon, LLC, for a tax abatement of 75% for a period of 10 consecutive years in consideration of a proposed capital investment of approximately $9,200,000 in real property improvements and the creation of 5 net new full-time permanent positions with an estimated annual payroll of approximately $175,000. Headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, Marble Cliff Canyon LLC is a real estate holding company that is a subsidiary of Thrive Companies, previously known as Wagon Brenner Development. Wagenbrenner Development was a real estate development and construction company which recently rebranded its name and is now known as Thrive Companies. The company specializes in acquiring blighted and underutilized properties and redeveloping them to their highest and best use. MCC is proposing to invest a total project cost of approximately $10,845,000, which includes $9,200,000 in real property improvements, $145,000 in acquisition costs, and $1.5 million in furniture and fixtures to construct a new 3-story speculative commercial office structure consisting of approximately 43,000 square feet on a roughly 70 acres of undeveloped and land located at 2130 Quarry Trails, Columbus, Ohio. The company anticipates that the proposed development will lead to the creation of 5 net new full-time permanent positions with an annual payroll of approximately $175,000. The Hilliard City School District and Tullis Career and Technical Center schools have both been advised of this project. This evening, we have Steve Bollinger, Principal and Executive Vice President of Development of Thrive Companies, here to share a few words regarding this item. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Remy and council members. Appreciate the time. I can't thank you guys enough and the city as it relates to these times in COVID and being able to get this project started. We're well underway with construction on the apartments as well as some of our for sale product, and we hope to be able to start construction on the office here soon. Obviously, with this site being as challenging as it is, a 70-acre old landfill, Metro Parks being a partner in this, but we really look at the city as being one of the main partners in working with the different departments through these times. The utilities, Department of Development, Park and Recs have been incredible. We look forward to continue working with Park and Recs on the mobile study that's going on today. And if COVID hasn't taught us anything, these enterprise zones really allow us to create a place for office tenants and new businesses to come to the city. As you can imagine, retail office is struggling right now as it relates to finding space and people taking large square footages in these office buildings. And so this enterprise zone will not only help, bringing people to the city, but also finding tenants for this space. I think it also goes into the public-private partnership that we have with the city and being able to do some infrastructure improvements, not only directly on the site, but also in the surrounding area, and working with the traffic department and putting together a regional traffic study that is going to be kicked off. We had a call this past week and hopefully going into full phase 1 here in the coming weeks, if not next week. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the property, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bollinger. Appreciate the continued partnership with Thrive. Certainly wish you luck with the project. We do have one speaker this evening that is coming forth, and that speaker is Joe Motil. Joe, Mr. Motil, you have 1 or 3 minutes to speak. If you could state your name and any group that you may be associated with. Mr. Motil, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Joe Motil, 167 West Cook Road, Columbus, Ohio. President Hardin, Pro Tem Brown, Chair Remy. As I stated in 2017, when this quarry project sweetheart deal was signed, sealed, and delivered to Wagenbrenner, that it was irresponsible to approve of such terms and conditions because it could not be calculated at the time how many millions of dollars in property tax revenue would be lost to Columbus Public Schools and the overall economic and social impact the tax abatements and TIF from this project would have on the well-being of Columbus citizens. You once again have given a major campaign contributing developer a blank check to escape paying his fair share of property taxes while placing the burden on the financially strapped citizens of Columbus. Franklin County taxpayers have already spent $12 million through Metro Parks to support Wagenbrenner's extravagant development of discriminatory, unaffordable housing, while a total of 20% of the apartment set-aside housing units will be available for those making between $47,000 and $60,000 when the average annual income in Columbus for blacks and browns is roughly $37,500. On top of 8 out of the top 10 most common jobs in Columbus which are restaurant, retail, fast food, and home health, do not pay enough to afford these set-aside affordable housing units. Everyone in Central Ohio is well aware of the magnitude of this project and its potential for nearly 315 apartment units, 72 condos, 50 single-family homes, 28 townhouses, and 20,000 square feet of retail restaurant space, on top of 279 more single-family homes and 120 for sale multifamily units that will be built after a regional traffic study is completed. So once again, Director Stevens misrepresents this proposed 43,000 square foot office building and attempts to pass it off as speculative, as there are risk involved, as if there's risk involved. And I'd like to tell me, Director, how many speculative warehouses that have been given tax abatements at Rickenbacker have sat empty for, let's say, 6 months to a year. On top of which, this $2.2 million tax abatement is stated to create 5 full-time jobs that will increase our annual city income tax revenues by a meager $4,375, but reduce property tax revenues by $218,160 a year. Sounds like quite a bargain. But of course, the city council and the mayor don't give a damn about the loss of property tax revenues and the impact that it has on public education, affordable housing, and poverty. And nor does Director Stevens, since he doesn't pay Columbus property taxes. No, it's all about increasing precious city income tax dollars that make up 76% of our general fund and sacrificing property tax revenues for our social and educational needs for Columbus schools. That way you can continue to disproportionately spend our city income tax dollars to protect the investments of those who genuflect to. The developers, corporate Columbus, the Columbus Partnership, who control your fate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Motil. Of course, this project is regarding Hilliard City Schools and the Tullis Career and Technical Center, not the Columbus City Schools. Director Stevens, do you have any comments you'd like to make in regards to this particular project?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. Once again, we're using this enterprise zone 10-year 75% abatement as a strategic investment tool to attract new jobs and investment. I think it's critical as we are working to prepare what recovery and resiliency looks like once we come out of this pandemic. We have opportunities and office space available for those projects that we know are in the pipeline. We're working closely every day with our partners at One Columbus, who continue to go out and market our region to attract new jobs and new investments. So this is another tool and another opportunity to land new jobs and investment going forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions this evening? Surveying the screen. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Next, I have ordinance number 2531, 2020, to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with B&D Properties, LLC, and B&D Rentals, DBA, doing business as Vandalia Rental, for a tax abatement of 75% for a period of 10 consecutive years in consideration of a proposed capital investment of approximately $3 million in real property improvements and the creation of 10 net new full-time permanent positions with an estimated annual payroll of approximately $680,000. Established in 2018, B&D Properties is a real estate holding company. Vandalia Rental is an equipment rental company focused on construction and industrial equipment. Vandalia Rental was established in 1961, and their main lines of equipment are earth equipment, loaders, excavators, material lifts, boom lifts, and other equipment of varying types and sizes. Vandalia Rental is a third-generation family-owned and operated construction equipment rental company that was named after the city in which it was built, in Vandalia, Ohio. The company has evolved from a small family business into the premier equipment rental company in Southwest Ohio. Both entities have a common owner, Kurt Barney. B&D Properties and Vandalia Rental are proposing to invest a total project cost of approximately $8,125,000, which includes $3 million, in real property improvements, $5 million in machinery and equipment, $50,000 in furniture and fixtures, $25,000 in computers, and $50,000 in inventory to construct a new operation facility consisting of approximately 15,000 square feet located at 2265 North Wilson Road. With this new facility, the company will be able to establish a local physical presence in Columbus to better enhance the customer service experience. Vandalia Rental will be the tenant and employer of record and enter into a long-term lease agreement with B&D Properties. The Hilliard City School District and Tullis Career and Technical Center schools have both been advised of this project. This legislation is being presented as a 30-day legislation. This evening we have Jimmy Hassan, the Director of Sales and with Vandalia Rentals, here to share a few words on this ordinance. Mr. Hassan, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, President Hardin, Chair Remy, and members of council for inviting us to speak this evening. We're really excited about the opportunity to come to the Columbus market and family. You did a great job of kind of recapping who we were. I really appreciate that. But Kurt Barney, our president and current owner, the third generation Barney family, could not be here tonight because his son had an appointment with a specialist that they've been waiting for months to see, so I'm filling in for him. One of the things that we have seen in the rental equipment industry over the last years, and it continues into the foreseeable future, is a consolidation by the big nationals and multinationals. And part of our vision and Kurt's vision is to look at our growth and expansion in order to keep us a viable independent rental equipment company. And with that, we have a lot of customers that have opened up satellite offices in the Columbus market, and vice versa. I think our world is getting smaller, and we see a lot of projects that require that kind of cross-Ohio partnership. And through the vision that we have at Vandalia Rental, we have evolved to be the premier equipment rental company in Southwest Ohio. We currently have 5 locations, and we believe that what separates us from the competition is our service and our culture, which is a big part of who we are in the community. We not only operate in the community, but we are that community. We encourage our employees to give back. We do a lot of enrichment through our partners in the community. And as I mentioned, we help sponsor numerous programs. We look forward to joining the Columbus community and family and continue our tremendous reputation for quality, ethical, honest, and hardworking partnerships, which have become synonymous with the Vandalia Rental family. The North Wilson Road branch will give us the opportunity to share our motto and our belief in the way it should be. So we look forward to coming to Columbus and sharing the experience with not only our customers, but our expanded family at Vandalia Rental, and giving everybody the opportunity to experience equipment rental the way it should be. Once again, thank you, President Hardin, Chairman Remy, and the members of council for allowing us to speak this evening, and I open the floor to any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan, soon to be the premier rental company in Central Ohio and Southwest Ohio. So we look forward to that partnership. We do have one speaker on this particular piece of legislation this evening, Mr. Joe Motil. Welcome back to council. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and any association that you may have.
Thank you again. Joe Motil, 167 West Cook Road. President Hardin, Pro Tem Brown, Chair Remy, members of council. Have no issues whatsoever about the company. Sound like a fine company, been in business now for 60 years. And as somebody who's worked in the construction industry for 40 years, I understand the need for more good rental companies. But as far as I'm concerned, again, there is absolutely no justification for granting a $711,000 10-year tax abatement to this company or for any small business as such. This is just further abuse of an across-the-board tax abatement policy that continues to chip away at much-needed property tax revenues by companies, developers, and corporations that can afford to pay their fair share of property taxes. And again, it's basically corporate welfare at its finest, and this kind of policy needs to stop. Over the last 61 months, Columbus City Council has given out no less than $376,182,726. And since March of this year, when COVID first began, and it had a financial impact on our economy, you have given away now $62,850,750 in property tax abatements. This is a bad time for it. It's a bad time as always. And my comments from my previous statement apply to this as much. I misspoke in terms of in terms of the school districts, but pretty much everything else holds true. And I also just want to end by saying that I also wish to comment on what I consider the inappropriateness of City Council's Zoom meetings, that the option for public to chat should be provided. It's bad enough that these meetings are not going to be held in person and the public is completely limited to ask questions or respond to council's or city officials' comments. There's not even an option to request to be unmuted. Since these Zoom meetings are most likely going to continue for some time, the public needs to be given the opportunity to be more engaged rather than less engaged, or maybe that's the way council prefers it. Thank you.
Just like when we're in person, of course, we do the same thing. We encourage anyone to fill out a speaker slip that would like to speak on a particular piece of legislation. We don't allow people to just speak at will at a council meeting. We certainly are following the same rules with our Zoom meetings. So, Director Stevens, do you have any comments about this particular piece of legislation?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. I appreciate Vandalia's willing to invest in our community. It's great to use these tools to attract small businesses into our to Columbus and Central Ohio to serve the needs of our construction industry. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions this evening on this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Passed.
Thank you so much. Next ordinance is 2535-2020 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a Big Darby agreement with Metro Development, LLC, to outline the plans and commitments of the City of Columbus of the city and the developer for parcels 570, 1848, 18, and 570, 30, 1099, located at 5960 West Broad Street, subject to the Big Darby Revenue Program requirements in the Big Darby Accord, Watershed Master Plan, and the rezoning ordinance for the developer's rezoning application Z19-030. Metro Development LLC has applied for rezoning and received approval from the Development Commission in September 2019 to rezone property at or near the northwest corner of the intersection of West Broad Street and Doherty Road, and generally located at 5960 West Broad Street. The developer intends to purchase the 9.023 acres encompassing the developer property in order to privately invest approximately $18 million to construct 192 multifamily units in private improvements. Consistent with the Big Darby Accord, Watershed Master Plan, and Ordinance 1699-2020 submitted for City Council consideration, the developer property and adjacent property are subject to the requirements of the Big Darby Revenue Program. Sorry about that for 1 second. Technology at its finest. The Big Darby Revenue Program identified 3 revenue generation sources: tax increment financing, new community authority, and for Big Darby Accord purposes, Big Darby public improvements and other regional public improvements. The legislation authorizes the Director of the Department of Development to enter into an agreement with the developer to outline the plans and prospective commitments of the city and developer of the fulfillment of the Big Darby Revenue Program in relation to the developer property and adjacent property. Are there any comments this evening from the Director in regards to this particular piece of legislation?
Yes, thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. This agreement memorializes how we are going to utilize the 3 sources of revenue generated through the Big Darby Revenue Program. The first is a $2,500 per residential unit contribution. The second are NCA charges, and the third are revenue generated from the TIF that will be created. Those dollars will be used to fund regional improvements such as the Doherty South improvements, as well as the West Broad Street improvements, including signal and turn lanes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments this evening on this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Thank you very much. This past Thursday, November 19th, my office, along with the Director of Economic Development, Mike Stevens, held a public hearing where we discussed the remaining 9 ordinances in the Economic Development Committee, which are tax increment financing items. The public hearing provided a detailed overview of all 9 ordinances, as well as an overview of what TIFs are and why we use them as an important development tool. So I'll move right into those at this time. Ordinance 2545-2020 is to amend Ordinance 1648-2016 as previously amended by Ordinance 3170-2019 to remove parcels from the existing Yeager TIF area, to create the Stadium 41 TIF area pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5709.41, to declare improvements to the Stadium 41 TIF parcels to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, to require the owners of the Stadium TIF 41 TIF parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, to require the distribution of the applicable portion of those service payments to the Columbus City School District, and to establish an urban redevelopment tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of the remainder of those service payments. The city, in cooperation and partnership with Franklin County and the Crew SC Stadium Company, a Delaware limited liability company, entered into a development agreement on July 3rd, 2019, documenting the parties' agreements relating to the development of a new multi-purpose sports, entertainment, cultural, and recreation facility, and a project containing mixed-use retail, residential, entertainment, hospitality, office, and commercial uses adjacent to the stadium near the western terminus of Nationwide Boulevard and Olentangy River. The development agreement was subsequently amended by a certain First Amendment to Development Agreement dated December 19, 2019, and added Crew SC Development Company and the authority as parties to this collective agreement. Pursuant to the EDA, the city agreed to support the project by establishing tax increment financing under Ohio Revised Code 5709.41. Annual service payments in lieu of taxes will be made with respect to improvements to the new Stadium 41 TIF parcels. The applicable portion of those service payments will be distributed directly to the Columbus City School District in the same manner as usual, in the amount that the school district would have received in real property taxes had the tax exemption not been granted. The remaining non-school portion of those service payments will be paid to the city for deposit into a new 41 TIF fund established in this ordinance to be used to finance the development of the project or other purposes as determined by council in the subsequent ordinances. Does Director Stevens have any comments about this particular piece of legislation this evening?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. As we discussed at Thursday's public hearing, this is the 5th and final TIF that will be modified in the Arena District Confluence Village area per the agreement that Councilmember Remy referenced as he introduced this legislation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions this evening from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance number 2563-2020 to amend ordinance number 1447-2020, establishing the Rickenbacker 317 TIF to add additional parcels of real property to expand the Rickenbacker 317 TIF, to declare non-residential improvements to those new TIF parcels to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, to require the owners of those parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, to require the distribution of the applicable portion of those service payments to the Eastland, Fairfield Career and Technical Schools, Columbus City School District, and Hamilton Local School District, and to deposit the remainder of those service payments in the Rickenbacker 317 TIF Fund, to amend ordinance number 1447-2020 to explicitly add the Eastland Fairfield Career and Technical Schools as one of the school districts to receive compensation from the Rickenbacker 317 TIF in an amount equal to the real property taxes that it would have been paid if the non-residential improvement to each parcel within the Rickenbacker 317 TIF had not been exempt from taxation. Director Stevens, do you have any comments about this particular piece of legislation?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. We are moving this TIF legislation forward so we proactively put in place the opportunity to capture incremental increase in value to make further investments that would be needed out at Rickenbacker as we continue to attract new jobs and investment to the Rickenbacker area. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Stevens. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments this evening on this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 2571, 2020 to appropriate and authorize the expenditures of TIF revenues to be deposited in the Stadium 41 TIF Urban Redevelopment Tax Increment Equivalent Fund, to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a TIF and cooperative agreement with Confluence Community Authority, and if applicable, Confluence Development, LLC, an affiliate of the Crew SC Stadium Company, LLC, to provide TIF service payments as security for either development bonds issued by the authority and/or other financing needed by the authority for the eligible cost of the stadium and mixed-use development pursuant to the TIF and cooperative agreement. Director Stevens, do you have any comments about this particular piece of legislation this evening?
President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council, this is a companion piece to ordinance number 2545-2020. What this does is it outlines how we will be using those TIF funds as reimbursement going forward. I want to emphasize, this is the fifth and final piece of these TIF modifications. There is nothing new that beyond what was agreed upon in the original development agreement that was approved back in 2019. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments about this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance number 2600, 2020, amending ordinance number 3106, 96 to extend the exemption from taxation of improvements provided for by Ohio Revised Code 5709.40 for certain parcels comprising the Polaris development in the city pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 5709.51. City Council established the original Polaris tax increment financing area in 1996 by ordinance 3106-96, passed on December 16, 96, to provide for a 30-year tax increment financing exemption beginning for tax year 97 and ending in tax year 2026 in order to fund infrastructure improvements necessary for the development of Polaris. The TIF area was subsequently expanded in 2004 and passed by, and then in Ordinance 1560-2005, in Ordinance 1914-2008, passed by City Council on December 1st, 2008, and Ordinance 1582-2013, passed by City Council July 1st, 2013, the TIF area was reduced in size by Ordinance number 1847-2015, passed by City Council in 2015. The Polaris TIF currently generates approximately $4.2 million per year in non-school TIF revenue after providing for compensation payment for the Olentangy Local School District, which receives all real property taxes it would otherwise receive absent the TIF exemption. In 2019, the Ohio General Assembly adopted Section 5709-51 of the Revised Code, which allows City Council to extend the terms of the exemption for certain TIFs generating in excess of $1.5 million per calendar year in service payments made pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.42, like the Polaris TIF, for a period of up to an additional 30 years. The attached ordinance extends the Polaris TIF for an additional 30-year period through tax year 2056 in order to provide funding for the additional public infrastructure anticipated to be necessary to enable additional business expansion and real estate development of the Polaris area during that time frame. The Olentangy Local School District will continue to receive all property taxes they would otherwise receive absent the TIF exemption extension. Director Stevens, could you speak to this particular piece of legislation?
Yes, thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of City Council. Polaris has been and continues to be a significant job center within our community. And as we prepare to recover from this pandemic and the economic impacts of it, this provides us an opportunity to continue to make infrastructure investments out in one of our significant job centers. Polaris has about 120 acres of land that still needs to be available for further development. And what the developer has agreed to with the city as part of extending this TIF is they're going to share 12.5% of those TIF revenues with the city of Columbus to be used for our community development priorities. It's TIF dollars. Can be used as a remote TIF throughout all our neighborhoods to make those infrastructure improvements that are needed. They've also committed between now and when the TIF is extended to provide $500,000 annually of TIF revenue that also can be used throughout our community to make neighborhood development improvements. As part of their expansion, they're forecasting that they're going to build 1,000 new housing units. They are making a commitment as part of this extension to build 20% of those at affordable levels, 5% at 60%, 5% at 80%, and 10% at 100%. And then finally, they have made a commitment to work to provide work to 30% minority participation commitment on the construction and engineering work that's going to happen out of Polaris. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Stevens. And in fact, on that additional compensation that they are providing, along with what Easton will provide in the next piece of legislation, that is something that council will be able to use those dollars on projects that reflect the values of the council. Is that correct?
That is correct. They'll be TIF dollars, so they're restricted some of the TIF infrastructure improvements, which will be a little different than what's the Easton dollars, but it will be. That's correct.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions this evening about this particular piece of legislation?
Chair Remy, not a question, just a quick comment. Just want to thank you as the chair of the committee, and certainly Director Stevens for your work over the past few days to work towards ensuring that these TIF agreements, both at Easton and Polaris, comply with the recently passed wage theft ordinance at the city. Just want to say I appreciate both of you working with me and my office on that topic to ensure that these projects ensure that everyone who works on them have the ability to earn a fair wage. So just want to say thanks to both of you for working with me on that issue as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Dorrance, and thank you for your advocacy on that important issue as well. Seeing no further questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Do you have an amendment on this, Mr. Remy? 2600.
That would be nice if I said that. I actually do. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I first move to amend.
Second.
Brown, Dorrance, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Amended.
And now I move to pass as amended.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorrance, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you so much for that reminder, Clerk. Next, I have ordinance number 2601, 2020, to amend ordinance number 170496 to extend the exemption from taxation of improvements provided for by Ohio Revised Code 5709.40 for certain parcels comprising the Easton development in the city pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 570951. The Easton TIF currently generates approximately $7.5 million per year in non-school TIF revenue after providing for compensation payments to the Columbus City School District and Gahanna Jefferson City School District, which each receive all real property taxes it would otherwise receive absent the TIF exemption. In 2019, the Ohio General Assembly adopted Section 570951 of the revised code, which allows City Council to extend the term of the exemption for certain TIFs generating at least $1.5 million per calendar year in service payments made pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.42, like the Easton TIF, for a period of up to 30 additional years. The attached ordinance extends the Easton TIF for an additional 30-year period through tax year 2056 in order to provide funding for the additional public infrastructure anticipated to be necessary to complete the development of the Easton area during that time frame. And the school districts will continue to receive all real property taxes they would receive otherwise, absent the TIF exemption extension. Director Stevens, could you speak to this piece of legislation?
Yes, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. I should have mentioned at the start of our discussion around these TIF ordinances that we project that these ordinances are going to result in over $1 billion in private investment during the lifetime of these TIFs and create over 20,000 new jobs. The Easton TIF specifically over the 30 years will result in an additional 3 million square feet of office space and over $150 million of net new revenue to the city of Columbus. Similar to the Polaris TIF extension, we worked with the developers to identify some commitments to our public policy priorities in order to move this forward. They have agreed to also share 12.5% of the extended TIF revenue to be used towards our community development needs. They've also agreed to 30% minority participation. Prior to the extension, they are providing $750,000 a year to the city and to be directed by City Council for our public policy priorities. And then finally, they're going to donate land at the Easton Town Center to Homeport to develop a low-income tax credit deal where the average income household of the residents there will be 60%, and it's going to result in permanent supportive low-income housing at the site at approximately 200 units. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Director Stevens. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments this evening on this particular piece?
Councilmember.
Council President Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you. I whether this is actually for you or the director makes no difference to me. So just jump in. I'm curious. You know, the $750,000 a year are not classic TIF proceeds, like the director pointed out in your question about the Polaris piece that we last voted on. It's more flexible. And so I'm wondering what you or the department are sort of recommending for the use of those dollars. You know, I think that it's important that they're focused on targeting the help that residents need the most, you know, year over year in this time, et cetera. So I wanted to inquire about that.
Sure. As we mentioned, of course, this will reflect council's priorities. So, you know, for instance, I know that you and I have talked about tenant-based rental assistance, but certainly collectively, we're going to need to have that discussion and make sure that, you know, we're focusing these dollars on some of the most vulnerable within our city. And so we'll have those discussions and certainly do the research to make sure that we're providing a program that helps in areas of the most need. And we'll be doing that over the next several weeks as we try to determine what our policy is moving forward. Director Stevens, did you have anything to
add? No, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that particular? Councilmember Tyson.
Yeah, I just want to say that I am, I appreciate certainly this council certainly working with Director Stevens to ensure that making sure that we're looking at 60% of AMI for individuals being able to live close to this development in Easton. I think that's extremely important based upon understanding the concerns that we have about having affordable housing. And I also, I am appreciative of the negotiations that went on from this council to the developer and ensuring that there are additional dollars to support the communities we just discussed, but more importantly, the affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to give a lot of credit to Council President Hardin, who was involved significantly with the negotiations on these two particular pieces. We've come a long way from where we've started, and certainly we have been able to gain so much that we can use to help with some of our most vulnerable over the next several years in order to bring relief. And so appreciate these dollars that are going to come in roughly 1.2 million a year that we'll have the opportunity to use between Polaris and Easton to help in this regard. So anybody else have any questions or comments this evening on this? Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Chair Remy, just a question on the $750,000. Is that an annual acknowledgement, or is that just a one-time deal?
It will be an annual payment through, is it 27 or 26, Director Stevens?
2027.
Okay, so starting next year through 2027, so several $1 million. Can't do math that quick. It's like 5, 6, 7 million, somewhere in that range.
5.25 million.
Thank you. I got close.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right. If there are no further questions or comments in regards to this legislation, I move for passage.
Second.
Councilmember Chair Remy, thank you for your leadership on this. I think that everyone's questions and comments speak to our ability to build more affordable housing, create more jobs, and for this council to lean in on one of our number one priorities, which is affordable housing with these discretionary dollars over the next several years. So I look forward to working with our colleagues to specify how we will get those dollars out the door. And with that, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 2619-2020 to amend ordinance 0973-2008 as previously amended by ordinance 1189-2009, ordinance 0923-2012, and ordinance 3169-2019 to remove certain parcels from the existing downtown TIF area, to create the PNC Gilbert TIF area, to declare improvements to the parcels in the PNC Gilbert TIF area to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, to require the owners of PNC Gilbert TIF parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, to require the distribution of the applicable portion of those service payments to be made to the Columbus City School District, and to establish a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of the remainder of those service payments. Director Stevens, do you have any comments about this particular piece of legislation?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. What this legislation does, it takes these parcels out of our existing downtown TIF and creates a new TIF on East Broad Street by the PNC building and the Gilbert building. And what it will do is we'll fund public improvements associated with the redevelopment of these parcels, including plazas and above ground walkways in the surrounding area. We're using this tool to help encourage some reinvestment in the office building at PNC to have new Class A office space, as well as the Gilbert building, which is being redeveloped for housing, which will include an affordable component. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and I should note that the address on that East Broad is generally located between 155 and 195 East Broad, and between Gay and Long Streets on the east side of North High Street. Do any of my colleagues have any questions in regards to this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Next, I have ordinance 2620, 2020 to amend ordinance 973, 2008 as previously amended by ordinance 1189, 2009, ordinance 923, 2012, and ordinance 3169, 2019 to remove certain parcels from the existing downtown TIF area to create the Madison High Street TIF area, to declare improvements to the parcels in the Madison High Street TIF area to be a public purpose and exemption from real property taxation, to require the owners of the Madison High Street TIF parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, to require the distribution of the applicable portion of those service payments to the Columbus City School District, to establish a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of the remainder of those service payments. Let's see here. I'm trying to get down. See if I can find the address. Director Stevens, can you tell me, can you tell our colleagues and those any additional information about that and whereabouts this is? The Madison, right at Madison and High, isn't it?
President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council, yes, this project is at the intersection of Gay Street and High Street at the former Madison building. These very similar to the last ordinance, we will be taking these parcels out of the downtown TIF, creating a new TIF, and then capturing a 0.40 B TIF, and using these dollars to reimburse still to be identified public infrastructure improvements around the project. This is important because both of these buildings are in, I would say, significant disrepair. So by putting a tool in place like this, encouraging that investment in these buildings, which will be used, housing is going to be the ultimate outcome. We're going to see probably the last corner of Gay and High fully redeveloped.
All right. Do any of my colleagues have any questions about this particular piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 2621, 2020 to authorize the Director of Development to amend and execute the original reimbursement agreement between the city and Morso Holding Company dated August 4, 2008, as amended by a First Amendment to reimbursement agreement on November 14, 2012, a Second Amendment to reimbursement agreement on November 11, 2014, a Third Amendment to reimbursement agreement on December 11, 2017, to add the Georgetown Company as a party to provide for goals for disadvantaged business inclusion, to provide for use of TIF revenue for projects determined by the city, to provide for affordable and workforce housing commitments, to provide for cash payments to the city for community development purposes, to govern the use of the TIF revenue generated by the TIF extension, and to make certain other TIF technical modifications. This is a companion piece. So Director Stevens, could you speak to this particular piece of legislation?
Yes, thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council. This is the companion piece to 2601, 2020. I went through the details of what we're memorializing here in this piece when we talked about the extension of the TIF. I do want to take this opportunity to thank President Hardin, Chair Remy, and Chair Favor, who were instrumental in helping us finalize this agreement with the developer. So thank you for your time and commitment to that.
Thank you, Director Stevens. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments in regards to this piece of legislation? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
Finally, in economic 22, 2020 to authorize the Director of Development and restated tax increment financing agreement dated as of December 28, 2016, as amended by the First Amendment to the original agreement dated as of December 11, 2019. And this order Second Amendment to the original agreement to provide funding for public infrastructure necessary for the continued development of Polaris and the surrounding area from the Polaris TIF, to provide for goals for disadvantaged business inclusion, to provide for use of TIF revenue for projects determined by the city, to provide for affordable and workforce housing commitments, to govern the use of TIF revenue generated by the TIF extension, and to make certain other technical modifications. Again, another companion piece of legislation. Director Stevens, could you comment on this piece, please?
President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of council, this memorializes the what I outlined as part of the Polaris TIF extension with ordinance 2600-2020. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think it's important to note on both the Polaris, I don't think you mentioned this, but on both the Polaris and the Easton TIFs, the commitment by both developers to award at least 30% of the construction, design, and engineering contracts to qualify minority and women-owned businesses for the city. So just wanted to point that out as well. Any comments or questions from my colleagues this evening on this? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorrance, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
With your permission, can I move on to administration, please?
Please.
I have one ordinance in the administration committee this evening, ordinance 2562-2020, to authorize the executive director of the Civil Service Commission to modify and increase a contract with Winfred Arthur Jr. for the execution of an independent audit of the Columbus police officer recruiting testing process as recommended by the Columbus Community Safety Advisory Committee, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Chapter 329 of the Columbus City Code so as to allow the modification and increase of this contract, to authorize a transfer of $35,000 within the general fund, to authorize the expenditure of $80,000 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. In accordance with recommendation number 13 of the Columbus Community Safety Advisory Commission recommendations, the Civil Service Commission has been tasked with overseeing an independent audit of the Columbus police officer recruiting testing process. An initial contract for $10,000 was their junior PhD for the development and submission of plan outlining the having now received and wants to contract with Dr. Arthur to provide all identified deliverables for $1,000. As such, the Civil Service Commission needs to modify the existing contract and increase the maximum contract with PhD in preparation for the need. And we're losing me. Did anybody hear what I said? Yes, no, maybe so.
We can hear you now, Chair.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to Liz Reed. With the Assistant Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. Liz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Remy. Council President Hardin and the esteemed council. This ordinance is a direct response to the Columbus Community Safety Advisory Commission's recommendation number 13, which reads, there should be an independent audit of the recruiting testing process included in an annual report. The Columbus Civil Service Commission consulted with Dr. Winfred Arthur Jr. to create a detailed plan for this audit. The principal, Dr. Arthur, holds a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. His peers highly recommended him for this unique task. He is extensively experienced in this niche area, public safety selection, including recruitment, testing, background reviews, and psychological testing. Dr. Arthur did an exceptional job developing the audit plan. This legislation is a modification to his MBE contract that will allow Dr. Arthur to execute this plan. The Civil Service Commission requests your support and approval of ordinance number 2562-2020.
Thank you so much, Ms. Reed. I appreciate the comments this evening. Is there any comments or questions from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorrance, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Pass.
And that's all I have in administration. And since the chair of Health and Human Services needs to abstain from this first one, if you don't mind, I'd move into the first ordinance in Health and Human Services. Was that a yes? Okay. Ordinance 2691, 2020, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with the Community Shelter Board to provide programmatic support for people experiencing homelessness who have COVID-19 or have been exposed, and to operate social distancing shelters, to authorize an expenditure of up to $1 million from the CARES Act fund to authorize the payment of expenses starting March 1st, 2020, and to declare an emergency. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused unforeseen needs among Columbus and Franklin County residents. In addition, human services agencies working to meet those needs have been impacted by both revenue losses and unforeseen and unbudgeted costs. The Community Shelter Board is one of those agencies. These CARES Act funds will be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus pandemic among individuals and families who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, and to support additional homeless assistance and homelessness prevention activities to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. The Community Shelter Board, a nonprofit organization, has been selected because of their history with the city and the homeless service community, and the funding and coordination of service to homeless individuals and families, as well as their established administrative procedures to effectively and efficiently implement such services. The Community Shelter Board will work with its partners to continue to operate existing emergency shelters, a shelter for isolation and quarantine to care for people experiencing homelessness who have COVID-19 or have been exposed, and to operate social distancing shelters. Director Stevens, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make about this particular piece of legislation?
Chair Remy, President Hardin, members of council, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments in regards to this CARES Act funding? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorrance?
Yes.
Ms. Faber?
Yes.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Abstain.
President Hardin?
Yes. Ordinance passed.
And now I am finally done, and we'll turn it over to the Chair of Health and Human Services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have the next two ordinances are related to development and implementation of a comprehensive campaign to prevent COVID. The first ordinance is Ordinance 2700-2020. It's to waive the competitive bidding requirements of Columbus City Code Chapter 329 to authorize the director to execute a professional services contract with Canvas Consulting LLC in an amount up to $815,000 for the purpose of implementing a new comprehensive campaign to help stop the spread of COVID-19, to authorize an expenditure of up to $815,000 from the CARES Act fund, and to authorize the payment of expenses starting March 1 of 2020, and to declare an emergency. Since the pandemic first began to impact the area in March of 2020, the City of Columbus the City of Columbus and Columbus Public Health has developed and executed several smaller and more focused campaigns to promote COVID-19 testing that will run through the end of the year, contact tracing, flu shots, and wearing masks. Mask equal kindness. The mask campaign, while small in media spend, resulted in the city providing over 400,000 masks to citizens. But now, with the convergence of an anticipated surge in COVID-19 cases nationwide, oncoming winter weather, and the holiday season, the city, along with Columbus Public Health, wants to undertake its first comprehensive campaign. Based upon the strategy prepared by Ology LLC, Canvas Consulting LLC will implement a targeted multimedia campaign that will focus on awareness, education, prevention, and a call to action, utilizing media partners, websites, radio, social media, community outreach, and other marketing other marketing media. And there is a waiver of requests for proposal requirements. And I'm going to ask Director Stevens to please share that.
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Tyson, members of council. A waiver is being requested because of the nature of the public health emergency. It's immediate, it's ever-changing, and because the services funded with CARES Act funds need to be completed by December 30th, 2020. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. If there are no questions or comments for the Director, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
And there's this component ordinance, it's 2701-2020. It's to waive the competitive bidding provisions of City Code Chapter 329 to authorize the director to execute a professional services contract with Ology LLC in an amount up to $185,000 for the purpose of assisting the City of Columbus with planning and executing a new comprehensive campaign to help stop the spread of COVID-19 and to authorize the expenditure of up to $185,000 from the CARES Act and to authorize a payment of expenses starting March 1 of 2020 and to declare an emergency. And again, so this would be with the previous ordinance about $1 million to support COVID and the advertising. This campaign, through all different types of aspects of everyday life in the coming months, and convince people to change their behavior. The campaign will reinforce proven behaviors like wearing masks, social distancing, avoiding large gatherings, washing hands, and getting tested. But this campaign is likely to be less educational and more psychological by focusing on the drivers and barriers of why people do not habitually adopt these known behaviors. It must be arresting and bold in tone and message to get right to the heart of people's attitudes and help them shift from an awareness of to taking action for their own safety and the common good. Once the campaign strategies are determined, they will be executed by Canvas Consulting LLC, which we just passed that legislation. And again, there is a waiver of competitive bidding and a waiver request for proposal requirements. And due to what Director Stevens just stated, that these CARES Act dollars have to be spent by December 20th of 2020. And then based upon the public health emergency, we want to, again, work with these two companies to be able to get the message out. Director Stevens, do you have any other comments regarding this legislation?
President Hardin, Chair Tyson, members of council, I don't have any other comments. Not surprisingly, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Director. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. Thank you. The next ordinance is 2719-2020. It's to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with the Clintonville Beachwald Community Resource Center for the provisions of direct services to low and moderate income clients who have been impacted by COVID-19 or have been exposed and are served by the members of the Columbus Federation of Settlements, to authorize an expenditure up to $250,000 from the CARES Act Fund to authorize a payment of expenses starting March 1 of 2020 and to declare an emergency. The COVID pandemic has caused unforeseen needs amongst Columbus and Franklin County residents. Clintonville Beachwald Community Resources Center will be acting as the fiscal sponsor on behalf of the Columbus Federation of Settlements to support a material assistance fund to meet the increased basic needs of families and individuals experiencing economic hardships resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Each partner organization, which is Central Community House, St. Stephen's Community House, Clintonville Community Resource Center, Gladden Community House, and the Godman Guild Association, would have access to CARES funds to serve their clients. These funds will be the provision of direct services to low to moderate income clients served by the members of the Columbus Federation of Settlements. Services will include supporting the community with rent and utility support, food, clothing, uniforms, furniture, appliances, ID support, gas cards, diapers, baby supplies, tuition costs, work supplies, medical copays and deductibles, alternative living arrangements due to quarantine, funeral costs, and more. Up to 10% of these funds will be used for the administrative or staffing costs associated with the delivery of these services. These services include, in this agreement, cannot be provided by existing city employees because these services are beyond the city's current staffing capacity. And again, I am very thankful for the nonprofit organizations continuing to step up to help our residents in need. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Well, seeing none, I certainly want to again thank the Department of Development under the leadership of Director Stevens. And I also, as the mayor was in council chambers this evening, really thank him and his administration for, again, providing these resources in this committee, my committee tonight, to support individuals who are affected by COVID-19. So if there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Thank you. And again, that concludes my the work in Health and Human Services. And again, I really want to thank Thanksgiving is coming on Thursday, but again, I really want to thank all the human service organizations that are really helping to meet the needs. So happy Thanksgiving to them and to all the residents. And that's all I have in my committee this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Small and Minority Business Committee. In the committee, which I chair, we have ordinance 2739-2020, and it's to authorize the director of the Department of Development to execute a grant agreement with SID Public Service Association in amount up to $2 million for the purposes of deploying grants to Columbus small businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in downtown and short north business districts as part of the department's COVID-19 small business response and recovery program, and to authorize an expenditure of up to $2 million from CARES Act funds to authorize the payment expenses starting March 1st, 2020, and to declare an emergency. Director Stevens, would you give us a few sentences on this CARES program?
Yes, thank you, President Hardin, members of council. We started some small business assistance programming with our CARES dollars earlier in the year by focusing on those census tracts that were low and moderate income. We expanded that throughout the whole city, and part of that process, we gave out over $8 million and impacted 900 small businesses. What this legislation does is it focuses in on our downtown and the short north and provides dollars to those small businesses and restaurants who've been significantly impacted by COVID-19, especially with the lack of traffic and volume that you normally see in our downtown in non-pandemic times. It's a thriving downtown. It's one that we want to make sure these businesses are positioned to sustain through this pandemic and can thrive when we all come back. So that's the purpose of this. Our partners at the Short North SID as well as the Downtown SID have agreed to run this program to get these dollars out and work with those businesses that have engaged with them. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director. And I would just add that these funds did come after a consultation with council. We had a particularly insightful community engagement meeting downtown where we heard firsthand from small businesses. And I think that is correct. One thing that I told the small businesses downtown is that the pain that they're feeling truthfully is being felt everywhere throughout every segment of our downtown. And we were really proud of the work that we did with the first tranche of small business support earlier in the fall that directed money and made sure that money got to different census tracts. But we cannot deny the impact, the ongoing impacts and some deep impacts for some of our downtown businesses because of the lack of folks and traffic in the downtown core. And so do any of my colleagues have any questions for Director on this specific ordinance? Seeing may I get a motion for passage?
Second.
So moved.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Ordinance is passed. The final committee to come before council is the Rules and Reference Committee, and I chair that committee as well. I have ordinance 2770-2020, and it's to find not legally sufficient a petition for a proposed ordinance title to authorize and direct the city auditor to establish an energy conservation and energy efficiency fund and a clean energy education and training fund, and to take the necessary actions to transfer $10 million from the general fund of the city of Columbus to each of these funds for a total of $20 million for their appropriate purposes, and to authorize and direct the city auditor to take the necessary actions to transfer $10 million from the general fund of the city of Columbus for the purpose of funding a minority business development program, to establish a Columbus Clean Energy Partnership Fund, and to authorize and direct the city auditor to take the necessary actions to transfer $57 million from the general fund of the city of Columbus for the purposes of funding an electricity subsidy program for the city of Columbus, to establish a transparency and accountability reporting requirement for the city auditor for all uses of funds in sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, and to declare this ordinance to be an emergency measure and shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage, and to declare an emergency. On November 6, 2020, the city attorney's office advised its council that the initiative petition was not legally sufficient as to form, as it fails to comply with the city charter. Specifically, the proposed title failed to comply with the paragraph E of section 42-2, and that it did not contain a reference to the establishment of a minority business enterprise clean energy fund as provided in for section 3. It also contained no reference to the delegation of the city's contracting authority to a private party as described in section 3 and 4 of the petition. It also, such delegation would require a waiver of the competitive bidding provisions of the city code, which is not disclosed in this petition title. The city attorney's office had reported these deficiencies to council on November 5th, 2019. This council finds that the petition's failure to comply with sections 42-2 of the city charter is fatal to this petition. As such, this council finds that the petition for a proposed ordinance is not legally sufficient and shall not be considered for passage or defeat. Are there any comments from the city attorney's office?
Thank you, Council President Hardin. I think you stated it eloquently.
Thank you for your advisement. I think we read back what you sent over. So thank you for your guidance. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Ordinance is passed. So I don't have, if there's no further questions or comments or business to come before council, again, I want to join all my colleagues in wishing everyone a happy and safe and healthy Thanksgiving. And look forward to seeing everyone back at our next meeting, which will be December 7th, if I believe. With that, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Hardin.
Meeting is adjourned. I don't have my speaker slip. I know that Mr. Roble is speaking this evening on non-agenda.
We also have Charlotte Owens.
Okay. We can start with either one.